Welcome to each of you this morning. Here at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta, we strive to live with compassion, reason, respect, so that we might move ever closer to beloved community and promote justice throughout the world. A mission made possible by you, each of you. Your work and presence are a gift of nothing and everything. My name is Reverend Nick Filzen. I'm joined today by worship host Cheryl Martin and music director David Neches, along with special guests Reverend Kim, Natalie Reese, and violist Paul Daner. That was a beautiful prelude, Paul. Thank you so much. If you're a visitor or have been here for decades, you are welcome here. Visitors may find a blue card in the seat pocket in front of you. If you could fill this out and leave it at the front table before you leave, this will help us keep in touch with you and help you be more connected with us. We look forward to getting to know you, and we welcome you all. I'll be standing just outside the sanctuary following the service, and would love it if you came by to say hi. You're also invited to stick around for some coffee and cookies after the service so others can say hi too. We'll know you by your orange name tags. Whether you're here for the first time or the 1,000th, I sincerely hope you get what you need today. I'm just going to do a little zoom in here. I'd like to highlight a few upcoming events and other news which will serve to bring our community closer within, among, and beyond these doors. This coming Wednesday at 7 p.m., the pastoral care and worship teams will collaborate for our annual Blue Christmas worship service. Together, the two teams will shape a sacred, supportive space for folks who find themselves overwhelmed or grieving during this holy day season. Cheryl will be generously offering a personal introspection on this important occasion. The following week, you may or may not know this, Christmas Eve is happening. And we will come together here in this sanctuary for a Christmas Eve service at 5 p.m. Again, 5 p.m. on Christmas Eve. There will be lots of music and celebration of the symbol of new sacred life constantly entering this world, emerging from you. Chris Garcia is working hard to plan the return of the cookie exchange party directly after the service. In between those two events, I will be having, along with Janaea, a potluck at our house, and we'll send out information about how to get there this week, but you're all invited to come and enjoy some Yuletide experiences, maybe some homemade cider and some homemade cookies, which Janaea is excitedly planning right now. Again, we'll send out more information about that this week sometime. Again, all are welcome, both members and friends. If you want to come, you're welcome. We're excited that we have a new nursery care provider, Melita McStravick. She will help to give the youngest among us a safe and fun space when needed by kids or their parents during Sunday morning worship. Reverend Kim could still always use some help in her faith formation gatherings during that time, so if you're interested, please chat with her. But today, we're excited that our kids are invited to stay with us through the whole service. I believe that David has one quick announcement.
Good morning. Something special happened this morning. We had our first choir practice, a rehearsal, since March 2020. And so that was really amazing, and they sounded great. We are singing Christmas Eve. We're making our return Christmas Eve, and if you're going to be in town Christmas Eve and you would like to sing with us, we still have a couple of choir folders, so we meet next Sunday at 9:45. If you're interested, see me after service.
Thanks, David. That's very exciting news.
It is.
Other exciting news, and our last announcement this morning, is that we had two folks sign the membership book this morning. Let's celebrate Jim and Debbie Crane Campanella for officially proving what we already knew. They are integral members of this community. May we now move fully into our time of worship. During this holy moment together. May the gifts of the season, whether they be something, nothing, or everything, open us each to joy.
Good morning. Today's chalice lighting is by the Reverend Don Shea Cooley. We light our chalice this morning, grateful for the love that we experience in this beloved community. May the flame light the way for all who seek such abundance.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 225. You can either follow along in your hymnals or on the words on the screen. We are joined this morning on hymns by our guest violist, Paul Dana. So sing loudly. Stand in body and spirit, please. O come, Emmanuel, and with your captive children dwell. Give comfort to all exiles here, and to the aching hearts give cheer. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as love to dwell. Oh, come, you splendor very bright, as joy that never yields to might. Oh, come and turn all hearts to peace, that greed and war at last shall cease. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as truth to dwell. Oh, come, you day spring from and cheer our spirits by your presence here, and dawn in every broken soul as vision that can see the whole. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within as light to dwell. Oh, come, you wisdom from on high, and depths that lie within the sun, to temper
Good morning. I am Sheila Mulhern, the newest member of your pastoral care team. And we come now to the part of our service where we share the joys and sorrows that have recently come into our lives. If you would line up over here to share with us, and when you approach the podium, you can remove your mask. Please say your name so that we know what your name is. You know it, but we may not know it. I will begin by dropping a stone for those who cannot be here with us today, and a stone for the members of the military and their family. Just as a reminder, we do not record this part of this service, so feel free to share in confidentiality.
Thank you, Stephen, for being the person that really keeps us going. Really appreciate it. So today's a little different than normal. We're going to have a sermon in two parts, and really a sermon in stories. A couple weeks ago, Reverend Kim reached out about reading her favorite holiday story, The Gift of Nothing, sometime during this month. I thought that was a great idea, but I didn't really I had already planned some other services, but it worked out that I could kind of move things around this week, and I thought that we could even build around this concept, this whole service around the concept of the gift of nothing. But as I was trying to write a sermon for it, nothing I was writing felt right, and it didn't really emerge in a way that felt good. And I spoke to Janaea about it. She's my creative foundation in a lot of ways. She often so generously acts as a sounding board for me. And she suggested that since Reverend Kim was already reading her favorite holiday story, why not have a few others share their favorites too? Now, on the surface, that was a great idea already, but with her help, I also realized that stories themselves are very much the gift of nothing and everything all at once. They don't have any real material substance, but everything humans are, the thing that makes us unique from other animals, are stories. And so that very much is a nothingness, but also an everythingness. So thank you for the brilliant inspiration both to Janaea and to Reverend Kim. So our gift of nothing to you all today will be a series of short holiday stories that are meaningful to us in some way.
The Gift of Nothing by Patrick MacDonald. It was a special day. And Mooch wanted to give his best friend Earl a gift. But what to get him? He had a bowl. He had a bed. He had a Chewy toy. He had it all. Mooch thought and thought. What do you get someone who has everything? Nothing. He would give Earl the gift of nothing. But in this world filled with so many somethings, where could he find nothing? Mooch often heard Frank say there was nothing on TV. But as far as Mooch could tell, there was always something on TV. Mooch often heard Doozy and her friends say there was nothing to do. But as far as Mooch could tell, everybody was always doing something. Millie came home from the store and said there was nothing to buy. So Mooch went shopping. Mooch looked up and down every aisle. He found many, many, many somethings, the latest this, the newest that. But as far as he could tell, nothing was not for sale. So Mooch went home and sat on his pillow and just stayed still, as cats often do. And not looking for it, he found nothing. So he went and got a box and put nothing in it. Then Mooch thought, maybe Earl deserves more than this. So he got a bigger box. Now that's plenty of nothing. For me, said Earl, Mooch, you didn't have to give me anything. Who told him, thought Mooch. Earl opened Mooch's gift. There's nothing here, said Earl. Yes, said Mooch, nothing. But me and you. So Mooch and Earl just stayed still and enjoyed nothing and everything.
Papa Panov's Special Christmas by Leo Tolstoy. It was Christmas Eve, and though it was still afternoon, lights had begun to appear in the shops and houses of the little village, for the short winter day was nearly over. Old Papa Panov, the village shoemaker, stepped outside his shop to take one last look around. The sounds of happiness, the bright lights, and the faint but delicious smells of Christmas cooking reminded him of past Christmas times when his wife had still been alive and his own children were little. Now they had gone. His usually cheerful face looked sad now, but he went back indoors with a firm step, put up the shutters, and set a pot of coffee to heat on the charcoal stove. Then with a sigh, he settled into his big armchair. Papa Panov did not often read, but tonight he pulled down the big old family Bible and, slowly tracing the lines with one forefinger, he read again the Christmas story. He read how Mary and Joseph, tired by their journey to Bethlehem, found no room for them at the inn, so that Mary's little baby was born in the cowshed. "Oh dear," exclaimed Papa Panov, "if only they had come here. I would have given them my bed, and I could have covered the baby with my patchwork quilt to keep him warm." He read on about the wise men who had come to see baby Jesus, bringing him splendid gifts. Papa Panov's face fell. "I have no gift that I could give him," he thought sadly. Then his face brightened. He put down the Bible, got up, and took down a small dusty box off a high shelf and opened it. Inside was a perfect pair of tiny leather shoes. Papa Panov smiled with satisfaction. They were the best shoes he'd ever made. I should give him those, he decided. He was feeling tired now, and the further he read, the sleepier he became. The print began to dance before his eyes, so that he closed them just for a minute. In no time, Papa Panov was dreaming. He dreamt that someone was in his room, and he knew at once, as one does in dreams, who the person was. It was Jesus. "You have been wishing that you could see me, Papa Panov," he said kindly. "Then look for me tomorrow. It will be Christmas Day, and I will visit you. But look carefully, for I shall not tell you who I am." When at last Papa Panov awoke, the bells were ringing out, and light was filtering through the shutters. "Bless my soul," said Papa Panov, "it's Christmas Day." He stood up and stretched, then his face filled with happiness as he remembered his dream. This would be a very special Christmas, for Jesus was coming to visit him. How would he look? Would he be a little baby, as at the first Christmas? Would he be a grown man, a carpenter? Or the great king that he is, God's son? He must watch carefully the whole day so that he recognized him however he came. Papa Panov took down the shutters and looked out the window. The street was deserted. No one was stirring yet. No one except the road sweeper. He looked as miserable and dirty as ever, and well, he might. Whoever wanted to work on Christmas Day, and in the raw, cold, and bitter freezing mist of such a morning? Papa Panov opened the shop door, letting in the cold air. "Come in," he shouted across the street cheerily. "Come in and have some hot coffee to keep out the cold." The sweeper looked up, scarcely able to believe his ears. He was only too glad to put down his broom and come into the warm room. His old clothes steamed gently in the heat of the stove, and he clasped both red hands around the comforting warmth of the mug as he drank. Papa Panov watched him with satisfaction, but every now and again his eyes strayed for the window. It would never do to miss his special visitor. "Expecting someone?" the sweeper asked at last. So Papa Panov told him about his dream. "Well, I hope he comes," the sweeper said. "You've given me a bit of Christmas cheer I never expected to have. I'd say you deserve to have your own dream come true." And he actually smiled. When he had gone, Papa Panov put on cabbage soup for his dinner and went to the door again, scanning the street. At first he saw no one. But then he saw a girl walking very slowly and quietly, hugging the walls of shops and houses as she trudged her way down the street. She looked very tired, and she was carrying something. As she drew nearer, he could see that it was a baby wrapped in a thin shawl. There was such sadness in her face and in the pinched little face of the baby that Papa Panov's heart went out to them. "Won't you come in?" he said, stepping outside to meet them. "You both need a warm seat by the fire and a rest." The young mother let him shepherd her indoors and to the comfort of the armchair. She gave a big sigh of relief. "I'll warm some milk for the baby," Papa Panov said. "I've had children of my own. I can feed her for you." He took the milk from the stove and carefully fed the baby from a spoon, warming her tiny feet by the stove at the same time. "She needs shoes," the cobbler said. But the girl replied, "I can't afford shoes. I'm on my way to the next village to get work." Suddenly, Papa Panov remembered the little shoes he had looked at last night. But he'd been keeping those for Jesus. He looked again at the cold little feet and made up his mind. "Try these on her," he said, handing the baby and the shoes to the mother. The beautiful little shoes were a perfect fit. The girl smiled happily and the baby gurgled with pleasure. "You've been so kind to us," the girl said when she got up with her baby to go. "May all your Christmas wishes come true." But Papa Panov was beginning to wonder if his very special Christmas wish would come true. Perhaps he had missed his visitor. He looked anxiously up and down the street. There were plenty of people around now, but they were all faces that he recognized. They were neighbors going to call on their families. They nodded and smiled and wished him Happy Christmas. When Papa Panov saw some beggars, he hurried indoors to fetch them hot soup and a generous hunk of bread, hurrying out again in case he missed the important stranger. All too soon the winter dusk fell. When Papa Panov went to the door and strained his eyes, he could no longer make out the passers-by. Most were home and indoors by now anyway. He walked slowly back to his room, put up the shutters, and sat down wearily in his armchair. So it had just been a dream after all. Jesus had not come. Then all at once, he knew he was no longer alone in the room. This was not a dream, for he was wide awake. At first, he seemed to see only the long stream of people who had come to him that day. He saw again the old road sweeper, the young mother and her baby, and the beggars he had fed. As they passed, each whispered, "Didn't you see me, Papa Panov?" "Who are you?" he called out, bewildered. Then another voice answered him. It was the voice of his dream, the voice of Jesus. "I was hungry and you fed me," he said. "I was naked and you clothed me. I was cold and you warmed me. I came to you today in every one of those you helped and welcomed." Then all was quiet and still, only the sound of the big clock ticking. A great peace and happiness seemed to fill the room, overflowing Papa Panov's heart until he wanted to burst out singing and laughing and dancing with joy. So he did come after all, was all that he said.
Thank you, Natalie and Reverend Kim, for those gifts. And David, thank you very much for your added gift, too. Now is a time in the service where we reconnect with our bodies, with this moment, with the souls around us as we enter into a time of prayer and meditation. I invite or encourage you to be comfortable, however that is for you, whether it's seated tall or seated back, feet on the floor, eyes closed, head nodded, head down, whatever works for you, as we enter into this time of prayer. Spirit of life and love, often beautiful, often awful, we thank you for the gifts that we receive each day, whether they be stuff or nothing at all. And by nothing at all, I mean the gift of community, of support, of love, compassion, respect. And when it does emerge, ever so often, for justice. There's so much to be thankful for in this life, in our lives, but there's also so much to grieve. So much weight on our shoulders, on our hearts, on our minds. I want to send as much of my own presence and hopefully the presence and love of everyone in this community to those who were impacted by the tornadoes this weekend. The countless lives that were lost, and the lives that will never be with their loved ones again, if not physically, but they will remain in their memories. May those memories be a blessing now and forever. I also want to send my deepest compassion and love to everyone in this room who has any amount of grief that they're holding right now in this time of year. It can be tough, but we can get through it together, I hope. Blessed be and amen.
Today is the day for our second Sunday special collection in which UUCA donates the plate and undesignated contributions to organizations that provide work consistent with our UU values. Today's collection will benefit the Jesse Norman School of the Arts, whose mission is to develop students to become more creative, caring, and responsible citizens through the transformative power of the arts. And if the ushers would come forward, please. Many thanks for your generosity.
Before I begin this last story, I'd like to offer my gratitude to Noelle and Charity Hinton, my two stepdaughters, who are 10 and 8 respectively, for illustrating this story. You'll get to meet them both in less than 2 weeks. Kitty the dog's kind nest. Kitty the dog was just thrilled. She had a new nest all to herself. She had made it out of a baby blanket and found a place underneath a red rocking chair. It was great timing because winter was fast approaching. Now she knew she would be warm, comfortable, and dry for the upcoming cold months. The first several weeks of her life, she had slept outside where she was born. And though it was still one of her greatest pleasures to run in the wind outside with her long beard and eyebrows flowing behind her, she was a standard schnauzer after all, she was always pleased to return to the comfort of her own home. That shelter made her feel safe, secure. Kitty the dog also had the great fortune of a lot of food, a treasure trove of dried meat and vegetables, and it was stored in a cool, dry box, ensuring it would last no matter how bad the weather got. Sometimes she got a little bored with the same food over and over, yet she was still pretty thankful that she was never hungry. Even though Kitty the dog had found herself a great home and never felt insecure about where she would get her next meal, she was by herself and lonely. Especially since cat dogs are pack animals, not having anybody to share her space with her weighed on her heart. As she continued living in her nest, it got more and more comfortable, yet somehow more and more empty. It started to feel huge, too big even. As she kept adding soft things for pillows like an old wrinkled shirt and toys like a tasty tattered rope, the relatively small space should have filled up quickly, and yet it just kept getting bigger. Soon, the little space underneath the rocking chair had turned into a condo, then a house, then a mansion, feeling less and less cozy all the while. Right as autumn turned to winter and it started getting very cold outside, the nest was now as big as ever. With nobody else there, it didn't really feel like home anymore. Hawk the Crow had a different experience throughout his life. He grew up outside and stayed outside. He didn't mind it, but he had a whole family called a murder to keep him company and safe. They were all the best of friends, very protective of each other. They also loved giving each other gifts, like shiny beads they found on the ground. It was a real sign of love and respect to both give and get a shiny gift from a crow. But one day, a fight between crows began. One of Hawk the Crow's brothers didn't give a gift to Hawk that he had been expecting for something nice he did. Most of the murder thought that Hawk was being selfish and sided with his brother. Hawk the Crow yelled, "I don't need any of you. I can do it all on my own." As the end of autumn was approaching and the time for migration was nearing, the whole murder flew south for the winter in a roar of cause, leaving Hawk the Crow on his own. At first, it felt liberating to be all on his own. He had never been alone before and knew life would be difficult outside by himself when the weather got bad, with no other crows to keep him warm. Though he lived outside, the world began to feel smaller and smaller. It started to shrink around him. He didn't feel like he had many options at all, and nowhere to put the few things he held most dear, especially a cherished shiny baby sheep from a human's charm bracelet his brother had once given him. Kitty the dog had seen Hawk the Crow before. She always tried to chase him, never intending to hurt him, but just wanted him to know she was in charge, more powerful. And she got especially mean when Hawk the Crow would get close to her nest. His presence made her feel less safe. Remarkably, every time she chased him, her house would grow even bigger, emptier, lonelier. She couldn't figure it out. Of course, Hawk the Crow remembered how mean Kitty the dog had been. Crows rarely, if ever, forget anything. They certainly weren't friends, and there was little sign they would be. It was now the bleak midwinter, and for Hawk the Crow, the frosty wind's moan became louder and louder, colder and colder. Snow had fallen several times, snow on snow on snow. He had lost all his possessions underneath the ever-growing snowbanks. Everything except for the gift from his brother. He was terrified and afraid and freezing. He was alone. He didn't think he would last much longer. You would think that Kitty the dog would be doing great, safe and sound in his oversized nest, yet she too was feeling as alone and as poor as ever, even with all her comfort. Now her nest wasn't just too big, it was also getting too hot. She had to get out of there. Even going out into the treacherous, cold winter felt better than her empty, lonely nest. In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago. Soon after leaving the nest, Kitty saw something small sparkling in the snow. It was Hawk the Crow's shiny sheep charm. Looking closer, Hawk the Crow's black feathers became more and more clear in the wild white powder too. She recognized Hawk the Crow, and though they didn't get along in the past, she instantly knew what needed to be done to save them both. She slowly walked up to him, making sure not to seem threatening. She wagged her tail and relaxed her ears. With a warmth in her heart that immediately helped Hawk the Crow feel less cold, she asked, "Why don't you come stay with me in my nest?" Though Hawk was a little afraid of her because she chased him off so many times, this invitation seemed genuine, and he was out of options. The world was just about to get too small for him and close him out completely. They returned to Kitty the dog's nest, and as they entered, the mansion instantly shrank to a modest and inviting house, and then back to his comfortable nest under a rocking chair. And miraculously, what once was too hot for Kitty the dog to handle, the house quickly cooled down to a warm, but not too warm, temperature. It was just right. Both Kitty the dog and Hawk the Crow felt more genuine happiness than they had for some time. They felt connected. Even though they hadn't gotten along in the past, they knew they couldn't survive without each other. Each of them had felt incredibly poor before, assuming they had nothing to give each other. But Kitty wisely and warmly decided that she would do her part to help. Not just Hawk, but help them both. Hawk the Crow, in an act of extreme generosity, then offered Kitty the dog all he had left, the shiny, tiny sheep charm from his brother, the little luminous lamb that caught Kitty the dog's eye in the snow. Doing what they could, the treasure of kindness now made this once inhospitable and empty nest a home full of love and kindness. So they could each survive, their generosity toward each other transcended hospitality and a gift. They gave each other their hearts. Oh, what can I give him? poor as I am. If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give my heart. In the bleak midwinter, frosty winds made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give my heart. The end, blessed be, and amen.
Our closing hymn is hymn number 226. You can follow along in your hymnals. The words will be on the screen. People Look East. Hang on one second. Here we go. Are you ready? Welcome you to stand in body and spirit. Here we go. People look east, the time is near of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. People look ready there, one more seed is planted there. Give up your strength and seed of nourish. In the courts the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today, love the roses on the way. Stars in your watch, the gorgeous day, one will guard the full shall bring. Shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as the sun, the moon together. People look east the sun today, love the star is on the way.
As our worship ends and our service begins, may each of you continue being the gift that you are, all the stories that define you included, to the world. Blessed be.
Spirit of life, come on
the stirrings of compassion blow in the wind, life in the sea, moving the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Paul Davis.